Today we're going to be covering the 19th James Bond film, The World Is Not Enough, so let's get started. Hey everybody, my name is Justin. I love to watch movies. If you guys love to watch movies too, you guys are in the right spot. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming videos. Today we're going to talk about the 1999 Pierce Brosnan film, The World Is Not Enough. The World Is Not Enough revolves around the assassination of billionaire Sir Robert King by the terrorist Renard, and Bond's assignment to protect King's daughter Electra, who had previously been held ransom by Renard. During his assignment, Bond unravels a scheme to increase petroleum prices by triggering a nuclear meltdown in the waters of Istanbul. I used to watch a lot of James Bond movies growing up, especially the Pierce Brosnan ones. I used to go to the local library and rent mostly all of the ones from like Sean Connery and Timothy Dalton, and of course the Pierce Brosnan ones. So I've seen The World Is Not Enough plenty of times, but it's been a few years since I've seen this film, and I think that this movie is a decent James Bond film. There's not much to make this movie feel like it's an exciting, climatic James Bond movie. I think it's just fine. There is a pretty strong opening, a good ending with a submarine, but everything else in between just kind of feels weak to me. The movie opens up with Sir Robert King dying, being blown up, and James Bond is being hunted by someone, and they talk about this big villain, Renard, who seemed like he could be feared by many. And the big plot twist, for anybody who has not seen this movie, the person who's kind of behind the big scheme and everything is Sir Robert King's daughter, Electra, who James Bond is supposed to protect. She betrays everybody and makes everybody think she's like the damsel in distress. So she is the person that's kind of behind everything. And neither Renard or Electra do feel like a big bad villain. They don't feel feared at all. They're not very sinister. I think they're a bit jokey at times. So the villain aspect of the movie is not my favorite thing in this movie, and it attempts for some emotional moments towards the end regarding both of those characters, but it never really works out. Pierce Brosnan, once again, is decent in his role. I like him as James Bond. To me, he's one of the more memorable James Bond actors besides Sean Connery. I grew up watching him, so I think he's decent in his role. The action scenes, he participates in them and does a good job with the scenes and makes them really believable, especially a really exciting end sequence with him and Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards, when they're in a submarine. You really feel like it's intense and question, how is James Bond going to get out of it? You know, he gets out of everything, but the movie definitely does feel a bit urgent at the end. It kind of picks up and makes everything wrap up really nicely. Speaking of Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards, I really enjoyed her in the role. She felt like a good colleague to James Bond. She worked alongside him really well. It's a character that I didn't want to have. It's a character that I didn't want her to have a romantic relationship with James Bond, because they worked as partners really well and they understood each other and they both were able to provide some good action sequences. John Cleese is added to this movie. James Bond jokes about him being R. We had Q, the next letter is R. I remember a lot of John Cleese in this movie. Even though that he was only in 2 movies, I definitely think that he had a lasting impression in the role. Hagrid returns. Robbie Coltrane is in this movie. Once again, he reprises his role from GoldenEye. I think he has a redeeming moment at the end. It's so cool to see him in this movie when I grew up watching him in the Harry Potter movies, and it's interesting to see him without his big, long beard and hair. This movie goes all over the place, from Spain to France to Turkey and the UK, and I think a lot of the filming locations are done well, especially in the beginning where there's a speedboat chase where James Bond is chasing after this girl who tried to shoot him. And they capture some of those locations well. There's a lot more humor in this movie compared to Tomorrow Never Dies and GoldenEye, especially from John Cleese. And some of the gadgets that James Bond has, it seems to have some comedic moments thrown in there, kind of reminding me a little bit of some of the Roger Moore films. Unfortunately, you know, those movies were very heavy on the comedy in some ridiculous moments. This movie had some of it with some of its action scenes, some of its gadgets that James Bond was using, but it never felt like it was the main point of the movie, and it didn't seem like it was a focus point. it just had some things that kind of caught me off guard. I also did appreciate that Judi Dench had a lot more to do in this movie. I think in GoldenEye, they had a good setup for the character and her relationship with James Bond, but she was really underused in that movie. So I'm glad that she had a lot more to do in this movie and participate with a lot of the different scenes. Overall, The World Is Not Enough is a good James Bond film. It's not one of my favorite Pierce Brosnan ones. I think it's a lackluster movie at times. It's not that memorable compared to Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another Day, and GoldenEye. It has some decent action, it has some decent characters, but in terms of a big James Bond movie, it's not up there compared to some of the other ones. And at least we know in this movie that James Bond knows how to spot a bomb very well. I'm going to go ahead and give The World Is Not Enough a B-. Thank you guys for checking my review for The World Is Not Enough. Next week, I can't believe we're already getting to the last Pierce Brosnan movie with Die Another Day. So stay tuned for that. My name is Just Watch Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.